Animals don't want to come in to graze by those roadsides, which are very much busier now too, remember. There are more people coming into the glen. So that this really got a chance to come away on the tunnel spoil. And this is it growing very successfully.
Changed days since these glens were sacred to sportsmen who kept their estates very private. Now the visitor is encouraged to walk and enjoy a path like this one, especially built for pleasure. Well, this is an enclosed hill, wide open to sheep and deer grazing. Animals have got to be considered as well as man. And Finlay has to look very closely at every aspect of land use. The path was made here because of the very exciting vistas through the trees.
And you can see, if you look down here, that a lot of the old Caledonian pines are now starting to degenerate. They're dying off.
I see the skeletons there.
That's right. This is because we're an open range here. The deer and the sheep are free to graze here, and there can't be any regeneration in that circumstance.
So the trees have no future at all
Not
here?
really. Those here have no chance, no.
So what we're going to do then is go down by the river and follow it round and get the idea of the varied country in this short stretch.
That's right, yes.
And this little walk that you've laid out for visitors, it really needs fairly careful placing of the feet because there's a fairly sharp wee descent here.
Well, I think if you're young and sprightly, it's fine, but if you're getting on, you've got to be careful.
Like myself, yes.
Oh, not quite like you, Tom.
Excellent. Let's go then, eh?
Right, all right. You were showing that sprightliness now, you see, which there's some doubt about.
It is. Oh, it's very nice here, though. It's very bracing.
Isn't it? Yeah.
It really is. It's keen air.
Keen air.
I've always been a lover of the snow.
Got to keep going here to keep yourself warm. Now, what do you think of this fine stretch of water here, Tom?
Oh, a great stretch.
Isn't it?
Oh,
Lovely.
great. And all the better, Finlay, for realising that if the engineers had had their original proposals passed, we would have lost this in one great stretch of water which would have swallowed up Glen Affric and Glen Affric.
That's right.
Nice and open here, Finlay.
Isn't it lovely?
Oh, yeah.
We're travelling now, you see, of course, through this open range. But over across the river here is one of the main enclosures. And if you look, you can see the young regeneration coming up there.
Yes.
But there's the regeneration within the deer fence, and it's all perfectly natural, that. We didn't plant any of that.
You merely excluded the grazing animals and gave the trees a chance to grow.
That's right.
So the deer are okay in here, but what happens if they get in there?
Oh, if they get in there, we're in a lot of bother. They'll eat many of those young trees. In fact, large numbers of deer getting in there would destroy that now.
I don't think you could see Loch Benevian under more splendid winter conditions than what you're seeing now. Like a fragment stolen from the Canadian Rockies. Pines, peaks, water. And beyond the very end of the road, I met two deer-stalking brothers, Donald and Duncan McLennan, who grew up in these hills. They knew the better days of deer stalking.
We live in a place like this.
See, these old days, the estates had big staffs. There was plenty of work for gillies, there was butlers and servants in the season. Everything was geared to the grouse, the fishing, the deer stalking. Very few tourists ever came to disturb the peace. But the Great War saw the end of that peaceful era. The rich people weren't quite so rich. Many of the lodges mouldered. This house and its shooting lodge is one of the very remotest in Scotland. I asked Duncan McLennan how he came to live here.
Well, I came here as a deer stalker, but then back about 1950, times began to change and they had to put sheep onto the hills. So I was asked if I would do the sheep, so I said I would. You got to move with the times, but it means a lot of hard work.
Many sheep?
1,500 breeding ewes, scattered over about 30,000 acres. And that acre will be pretty small just now, mind you, and the sheep will be pretty hungry, but they're hardy. But come the summertime, the acres are all clear and the sheep are well scattered.
And right up till now, of course, in all this cold weather, you've been working with the deer at the hinds.
We've been at the hinds since November, yes.
Killing how many?
We killed 140. That's what we're told to kill by the Deer Commission, a sixth of our stock, in other words.
Well, many people would think that's a year's work in its own.
Yes, it was pretty difficult this year with the ice. You know, we couldn't work the ponies properly with the ice, and we found it very difficult.
This was an abnormally hard winter here, was it?
Very hard winter. I would say it's even worse than the big storm we had last year. It's going on too long.
And come the lambing season, then you've got to be out up in the tops there and maybe dealing with a lot of mortality as a result of the winter.
Well, it's just a case of we'll go through the sheep just now as soon as the storm goes off, and we'll take the weak ones out and we'll take them in, give them a bit of feed. But the rest will be on the open hill and look after themselves pretty well. We've got to look after the fox. The fox is the main thing. We'll keep the fox down, sheep will look after themselves.
Now, I would like to ask your brother a question, because Donald McLennan, I know that you've changed your lifestyle and that you used to be a keeper in this very place.
Yes.
And now you're a Forestry Commission ranger.
That's right, Tom, yeah.
Now, what's the
right.
difference between a keeper and a Forestry Commission ranger?
Well, the difference between the two is that a keeper looks after the game and the deer. That's his job of work. Mine is the protection of the trees. I have to protect them from the deer, but it doesn't mean to say that I go around with a rifle slaughtering deer wholesale or anything like that. In vulnerable areas, if there's any deer in it, well, we kill them. But in the non-vulnerable areas and grown forests, the deer are very welcome to be in it. And we're very glad to have them there when we have guests out to shoot them. You see, that's the difference in the two jobs.
So otherwise your work is very much like your brother's in the way of fencing and draining and things like that?
Oh yes, number one job with this is in the protection of the forest is maintaining the fences, patrolling them to see if there's no holes, snowdrifts where deer can get in, open gates, etc., etc. And on the other hand, we have to control, as well as the deer, we control foxes, any of these predators. Because if the fox with his family comes out of my part of neck of the woods, we'll say, into my brother's ground, kill his lambs, I'm in trouble. You understand?
Oh, I understand. I also understand that you never go away on a holiday either in the accepted sense of maybe going a far place. How do you spend your holidays?
Oh, a best man's holiday. Best man's holiday. Doing what I do at work and getting paid for it. Fishing, shooting, stalking. That's the way I spend the holidays.
So the pair of you can't really get enough of work?
Well, if you enjoy what you're doing and look forward to Monday morning coming, you're enjoying what you're doing.
Glen Affric lies north, just across the ridge from Glen